A quiet rumor, unnamed and unclaimed, has begun to circulate through the fan community surrounding the bold and the beautiful, and like all rumors that truly matter, it refuses to fade. It does not arrive with certainty or confirmation, but with a sense of inevitability, the kind that settles in the pit of the stomach long before the mind accepts it. The whisper suggests that an unexpected breakup is coming to Los Angeles this year, a separation that will not feel routine or predictable, but instead deeply destabilizing. In a genre where love is rarely permanent and happiness is always provisional, such rumors should not feel shocking, yet this one has struck a nerve precisely because it appears to point toward a couple many viewers believed had already survived their worst storms. Across social media, anxious speculation has coalesced around one name, one marriage, one fragile promise of stability that may soon be tested beyond its limits: Shin. At first glance, the idea that Steffi Forrester and John Finnegan, known universally as Finn, could be heading toward a breakup feels almost unthinkable. In the ever-shifting romantic landscape of daytime television, their relationship has stood out as unusually grounded, built not merely on chemistry or shared history, but on deliberate choice. While other couples fracture under the weight of secrets, ambition, or long-buried resentments, Steffi and Finn have consistently returned to one another with a sense of resolve that suggested permanence. In fact, aside from Eric Forrester and Donna Logan, they represent the longest-standing marriage currently depicted on the canvas. That distinction alone has elevated them into a symbolic role, not just as characters, but as proof that endurance is still possible in a world built on emotional volatility. Yet stability in the bold and the beautiful has never meant safety. It often means visibility, and visibility invites pressure. As the long-anticipated fashion war begins to intensify, it threatens not only business empires and creative legacies, but the emotional foundations of nearly every relationship in its orbit. Power struggles at Forrester Creations and beyond do not remain confined to boardrooms. They seep into bedrooms, into family gatherings, into moments of intimacy where unspoken resentments finally find their voice. It would be a miracle if such a war did not claim casualties, and history suggests that no couple emerges untouched when ambition and loyalty collide. Still, most potential breakups feel foreseeable. Hope Logan and Liam Spencer already stand on opposing sides of an emotional and ideological divide. The families of Will Spencer and Electra Forrester are inching toward confrontation. Ridge Forrester and Brooke Logan exist in a perpetual state of almost collapse, their love story defined as much by separation as reunion. None of these potential fractures would surprise seasoned viewers. The real shock would be the collapse of Shin, precisely because it feels like the last remaining pillar of emotional certainty. Their marriage has been framed as a refuge from chaos, a space where rationality, empathy, and mutual respect could prevail even when the outside world turned hostile. Finn, in particular, has been portrayed as a steady presence, a man who approaches conflict with restraint rather than ego, whose medical profession reinforces his instinct to heal rather than harm. Steffi, hardened by years of betrayal, manipulation, and power struggles, has allowed herself to soften within this marriage, trusting that Finn's moral compass would not waver. That trust is what makes the rumor so unsettling. If this relationship can fracture, it suggests that no emotional contract on this show is truly inviolable. The danger, however, does not originate within the marriage itself, but from the shadows that surround it, most notably the ever-volatile presence of Sheila Carter. Sheila has always functioned as more than a character. She is a force, a manifestation of chaos that destabilizes every life she touches. Recent spoilers indicate that Sheila is on the brink of another explosive breakdown, fueled by rage and humiliation, after Taylor Hayes effectively steals Deacon away from her. For Sheila, this is not merely a romantic loss, but a profound narcissistic injury, an affront that demands retribution. Her anger is not impulsive, it is methodical, simmering, and directed with frightening precision toward those she believes have wronged her. The true danger lies in the intersection of Sheila's vengeance and Finn's divided loyalties. Finn has always walked an impossible line, attempting to honor his identity as Sheila's biological son while rejecting her destructive behavior. Each attempt to compartmentalize this relationship has exacted a psychological toll, forcing Finn to suppress fear, guilt, and responsibility in equal measure. Should Sheila act on her rage and harm Taylor, the consequences would be devastating not only emotionally but morally. Taylor is Steffi's mother, her emotional anchor, the one constant she cannot afford to lose. If something were to happen to Taylor, because Sheila spiraled out of control, Steffi would be forced to confront an unbearable truth, that Finn's mother remains an active threat, and that Finn, despite his best intentions, may never be able to fully neutralize that danger. This is where the marriage begins to fracture, not through infidelity or betrayal, but through unresolved accountability. Steffi has already sacrificed more than most in the name of love, and her tolerance for risk has limits. Forgiveness, for her, is not infinite. If Sheila crosses a line and Finn is perceived as having failed to stop her, the emotional damage could become irreparable. Steffi may not blame Finn consciously, but grief and rage have a way of reshaping logic. The question would no longer be whether Finn loves her, but whether his presence in her life perpetually invites danger. In that scenario, love itself becomes a liability. Sheila, meanwhile, appears increasingly determined to make Taylor pay. All signs suggest that her upcoming arc will be fueled by vengeance rather than restraint, and her history offers little reassurance. Sheila does not merely retaliate, she escalates. Her actions tend to spiral beyond their original intent, leaving collateral damage in their wake. If Steffi becomes entangled in this conflict, whether as a target or a defender, the stakes rise exponentially. What begins as Sheila versus Taylor could easily evolve into Sheila versus Steffi, dragging Finn into an impossible position where every choice results in loss. The emotional tension of such a storyline lies in its realism. Marriages do not always end because love disappears. Sometimes they collapse, because external forces erode trust faster than affection can repair it. If Finn finds himself unable to protect both his wife and her mother from his own biological parent, the foundation of his marriage may crack under the weight of that failure. Steffi, fiercely protective and deeply wounded by past traumas, may conclude that survival requires distance, even if that distance shatters her heart. What makes this rumored breakup particularly compelling is that it would not feel sensational or contrived. It would feel tragic, rooted in accumulated fear, unresolved trauma, and the slow realization that love alone cannot neutralize danger. The potential end of Shin would mark a thematic shift for the bold and the beautiful, signaling that even the most stable relationships are vulnerable when violence, obsession, and generational trauma collide. It would also reaffirm one of the show's most enduring truths, that in Los Angeles, happiness is never destroyed all at once, but chipped away through moments of hesitation, silence, and impossible choices. As the fashion war intensifies and Sheila's rage builds, viewers are left with an unsettling question rather than a definitive answer. Can Steffi and Finn survive a crisis that strikes at the core of their identities? Or will this rumored breakup become the most heartbreaking separation the show has delivered in years? If Taylor is harmed, if Steffi is forced to choose between safety and marriage, the consequences will echo far beyond a single couple. They will reshape alliances, redefine loyalties, and remind everyone watching that in the bold and the beautiful, love is powerful, but it is never immune to destruction. The coming months promise emotional upheaval, moral reckoning, and possibly the end of a marriage many believed would endure. Whether Shin survives or falls apart, the journey there will test every assumption viewers hold about strength, forgiveness, and the true cost of loving someone whose past refuses to stay buried. Over the next 2 weeks on The Bold and the Beautiful, the emotional landscape of Los Angeles shifts in ways that feel both inevitable and deeply unsettling, as long-suppressed desires, buried truths, and carefully constructed facades begin to fracture under the weight of human weakness. From January 19 through January 30, the story does not simply move forward, it tightens, drawing its characters into moments where intention clashes with impulse and loyalty is tested against longing. At the center of this storm are individuals who believe they understand themselves, only to discover that certainty is an illusion when emotions are pushed to the brink. The days beginning January 19 unfold under an atmosphere of instability, particularly at Forrester Creations, where professional identity and personal allegiance are becoming increasingly difficult to separate. Will Spencer finds himself standing at a crossroads, quietly aware that his place within the company is no longer as straightforward as it once seemed. The shifting dynamics surrounding Katie Logan Spencer's decisions have created ripples that reach far beyond boardrooms and design studios, forcing Will to confront questions about his future that he had long avoided. His conversation with Ridge Forrester is not merely about titles or roles. It is a confrontation with uncertainty itself. Will approaches Ridge seeking clarity, but clarity proves elusive when the company's internal alliances are fraying. Ridge listens, weighing his words carefully, aware that any assurance he gives may soon be undermined by revelations waiting just beyond the horizon. For Will, this exchange marks the first crack in his confidence, a moment where ambition collides with the unsettling realization that power structures are far more fragile than they appear. While Will grapples with his professional footing, Katie is facing a battle of a different kind, one that pits honesty against self-preservation. Donna Logan Forrester presses her sister relentlessly, urging her to come clean with Brooke Logan Forrester about the true identity of her new designer. The pressure is not malicious, but it is relentless, born of Donna's belief that secrets have a way of corroding even the strongest bonds. Katie understands this all too well, yet fear keeps her silent. She knows that revealing the truth will not merely spark a family disagreement, it will detonate unresolved resentments and reopen old wounds. Every time Donna insists, Katie feels the walls closing in, torn between the desire to protect herself and the guilt of deceiving someone she loves. Her hesitation becomes its own form of torment, a slow, grinding anxiety that colors every interaction and leaves her constantly bracing for exposure. Hovering in the background of Katie's dilemma is Eric Forrester, whose presence carries a weight far heavier than his gentle demeanor suggests. Eric has not yet confirmed his role at Logan with Brooke, and this omission is deliberate. When confronted, he offers explanations that are carefully crafted to deflect suspicion, suggesting that his visits to Katie are nothing more than friendly gestures or moments of mentorship. In these moments, Eric embodies the complexity of a man torn between creative passion and familial obligation. He tells himself that a small lie is justified, that postponing the truth will spare everyone unnecessary pain. Yet beneath this rationalization lies a deeper fear, the knowledge that once his new professional commitment comes to light, it will ignite conflict with Ridge, Brooke, and Steffi. Eric's silence is not cowardice, but a calculated delay, an attempt to savor a fleeting sense of autonomy before the inevitable reckoning arrives. As these professional and familial tensions simmer, a different kind of unease begins to surface among the younger generation, rooted in matters of the heart. R.J. Forrester returns to a world that has not waited for him, only to discover that Will is now romantically involved with Electra Forrester. The revelation hits R.J. with unexpected force. It is not merely jealousy or protectiveness that fuels his discomfort, but a sense of displacement, the feeling that while he was away, roles were reassigned and emotional territories claimed without his consent. When R.J. and Will finally come face to face after years apart, the encounter is charged with unspoken tension. Polite words mask a current of rivalry and unresolved history, each man measuring the other while pretending that nothing has changed. For Electra, caught between them, this reunion becomes another source of anxiety, reinforcing her growing sense that the ground beneath her is shifting. Electra's unease deepens as she begins to confront her feelings about Dylan, whose presence in her life has grown increasingly complicated. What once felt like harmless familiarity now carries an undercurrent of intensity that she cannot ignore. When she confesses to Will that Dylan makes her uncomfortable, it is not an accusation, but a plea for understanding. She struggles to articulate the subtle ways Dylan's attention has begun to feel heavier, more possessive, leaving her with a persistent sense of being watched. Will responds with reassurance, affirming his love and promising that there is no need for fear. His words are sincere, yet they cannot fully dispel Electra's instincts, which whisper that trouble often announces itself quietly before it erupts. Dylan, for his part, presents himself as respectful and considerate, insisting that he understands boundaries and has no intention of crossing them. On the surface, his demeanor is calm, even reassuring, but beneath it lies a tension that he rarely acknowledges. His growing attachment to Electra has taken on a life of its own, manifesting in moments of private longing and suppressed frustration. These conflicting impulses come to a head during intimate moments shared with Will at the beach house, where proximity and vulnerability create an atmosphere ripe for temptation. Whether Will recognizes it or not, these encounters test his resolve, placing him in situations where loyalty is challenged by the thrill of being desired. The beach house becomes a liminal space, a setting where choices feel less clear-cut, and consequences seem temporarily distant. While younger hearts navigate confusion and temptation, older ones are surrendering to desires they have long denied. Steffi Forrester Finnegan senses the danger looming around her mother and reacts with urgency, repeatedly urging Taylor Hayes to end her therapy sessions with Deacon Sharp. Steffi's fear is visceral, rooted in the belief that proximity will inevitably lead to betrayal. She confides in Hope Logan Spencer, seeking solace and advice, and finds in Hope an unexpected ally who understands the pain of watching loved ones drift toward ruin. Despite these warnings, Taylor and Deacon find themselves unable to resist the pull between them. What begins as emotional vulnerability quickly escalates, their shared history, and unspoken longing converging behind closed doors. In these private moments, they cross lines that once seemed inviolable, their surrender tinged with both passion and guilt. Each encounter deepens the web of secrecy surrounding them, increasing the stakes and ensuring that when the truth emerges, the fallout will be devastating. The secrecy surrounding Taylor and Deacon creates ripples that extend to Illinois Giardino, where Finn finds himself trapped in an uncomfortable confrontation with Sheila. Unable to avoid her, he is forced into conversation, acutely aware of the knowledge he carries and the lies he must maintain. Sheila's effusive praise of Finn as a kind and devoted doctor only heightens his discomfort, reminding him of the precarious balance he must maintain between honesty and protection. As Sheila speaks, Finn feels the weight of his silence pressing down on him, knowing that revealing Taylor's entanglement would unleash chaos. This tension leaves him emotionally exhausted, caught between moral obligation and the instinct to shield those he loves from harm. As the calendar turns to the week of January 26th through January 30th, the narrative momentum accelerates, drawing together disparate threads into a tapestry of impending confrontation. Carter Walton and Daphne Rose immerse themselves in wedding preparations, their discussions filled with optimism and anticipation. Their plans represent a stark contrast to the turmoil surrounding them, a reminder that hope and commitment still exist amid the chaos. At the same time, Hope spends tender moments with Liam Spencer, their shared intimacy offering a temporary refuge from the storms gathering elsewhere. These quieter interludes, however, are tinged with fragility, as both understand that happiness in their world is often fleeting. For Taylor and Deacon, the danger intensifies as their emotional surrender threatens to become something far more consuming. Spoilers hint that their connection may deepen into a passion that leaves no room for denial, transforming a single lapse into a sustained betrayal. Each step they take together amplifies the risk, not only to themselves, but to everyone entangled in their lives. The question is no longer whether they will be discovered, but when, and how much damage will be left in the wake of that discovery. Meanwhile, Eric's carefully guarded secret inches closer to exposure. His renewed dedication to design, once a source of quiet fulfillment, becomes a catalyst for conflict as whispers begin to circulate. When the truth finally emerges, it promises to ignite fierce reactions from Ridge, Brooke, and Steffi, all of whom feel betrayed by his deception. Eric's justification, that he sought creative purpose and personal freedom, may fall on deaf ears, overshadowed by accusations of disloyalty. The confrontation that follows is poised to fracture family bonds, forcing each member to confront their own assumptions about respect, legacy, and forgiveness. As these storylines converge, the emotional stakes reach a fever pitch. Deacon and Taylor's surrender, Steffi's failed attempts to intervene, Electra's confession, and Eric's impending revelation, all contribute to a sense that equilibrium is no longer possible. The characters move forward propelled by desire, fear, and unresolved pain, each choice narrowing their options until escape seems impossible. The coming weeks promise not resolution, but transformation, as secrets are exposed and relationships reshaped by the truth. Ultimately, these 2 weeks on The Bold and the Beautiful are defined by the tension between who the characters believe they are and who they reveal themselves to be under pressure. Love becomes both a refuge and a weapon, loyalty a fragile construct vulnerable to temptation. As the truth edges closer to the surface, the question is not whether lives will change, but how profoundly. In a world where passion often overrides reason, the fallout from these choices is inevitable, leaving viewers to watch as each character confronts the consequences of surrendering to the forces they tried so desperately to control.